like to call the committee of the whole meeting for Monday, February 5th, 2024 to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Gafino,
Here.
Trustee Christensen,
Here.
Trustee Curtis, Trustee Gately,
Here.
Trustee Lowry,
Here.
Trustee Nedved,
Here.
Trustee Salazar. Here.
All right. Audience comments, trustee comments? Discussion, item 1, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 1 is a discussion on commercial vehicle code changes. Nathan, since his arrival, has taken on our building code and is getting ready to take on our zoning code. One of the things in the board here, will probably remember, we've had conversations in the past about recreational vehicles, commercial vehicles. This time around, it actually does have some RV stuff in here, but what Nathan is doing is we realized that in 2 different sections of our code, the police section, and which is our traffic section of our code, and then our zoning section, which is handled by our code officer typically, that the definitions for commercial vehicles were slightly off. They didn't match. And so what we wanted to do is we did a cleanup, and we're trying to make sure that they're copacetic with each other. And then what we want to do, so make it more enforceable. But the other thing is we want to make sure that we all agree on what a commercial vehicle is. So it's a very complicated thing. It comes up a lot internally, depending on what resident will call us and us going to check. So Nathan's going to walk us through, and I think Nathan's got a proposed change to ask the board for feedback.
Yeah, so thanks, Steve. Like you said, Title 10 generally deals with streets and traffic, and Title 17 is the zoning codes. That would be on private property, and they had different definitions. So as we were trying to, look through those definitions and trying to match with the practice of what people call and complain about, it was actually very hard to come up with a simple definition. So if you just use a vehicle weight, so a lot of people were looking at just using like a Class D plate, which is 10,000 to 12,000. Well, the largest Ford pickup truck is a Class D plate. So some people could have that truck, not have any business at all, just, want to have that truck because they want a big truck. And are you saying you can't have that truck, as a private citizen? So there was kind of that to deal with. And then kind of on the smaller end, if you use things like decals or definitions like that, well, if you have just a small sedan and you're delivering Domino's pizza and you've got the decal on there, that's a commercial vehicle, but is that really a problem? That's what we're trying to, get out of the neighborhood. So we wanted to come up with a definition that covered the things people complain about, but still wasn't so broad that we're going after every vehicle in every, in every driveway. We're trying to focus on the problem. So we came up with this list. So what we're proposing is that a commercial vehicle would be defined as any vehicle that is either A, B, or C. So if you're any one of these categories, you're a commercial vehicle. So A is an F plate or greater. So that's 12,001 pounds or more. And that's semis and dump trucks, and those are big vehicles. So if you're that, automatically a commercial vehicle. B is a box truck. So box trucks can have, depending on their weight, can have all kinds of plates. They can be C's, they can be D's, they can be F's, just depending on the size. But we're saying if you're a box truck, no matter what, your commercial vehicle can't be in the neighborhood. And then C is kind of the complicated one. So that is a D plate. That's 10,000 to 12,000 pounds. But again, some regular vehicles get up into that range, your F450s and the largest Chevy pickup truck will be in that range. So on that one, we said, if you're the D plate and something else, so you're a D plate and have a bucket, have a lift, have a towing, have ladder racks, are a passenger van, you have to have both of those. And if you have both of those, then you're a commercial vehicle. So I think that covers all the situations in town, and I have an example here. So this is an actual picture from town of a driveway. Under this definition, so we have a bigger vehicle, a regular van, and a trailer in this driveway. Under this definition, the larger vehicle in the back would not be allowed. So they would be written a ticket or a citation and told to move. The van itself would be fine, even though it does have a ladder rack. It's just a normal van, has a normal van plate, so wouldn't trigger it. And the trailer would follow the previously approved trailer rules. So
But just the one truck on the end would be,
the one truck on the end
Okay.
would have to go. This van would be okay.
I think that's fine, yeah, that makes sense. And the trailer. No, the trailer would go under the trailer or, there's a separate. code.
Right, we've already adopted trailer rules, and that's like you have to be in the garage or you have to
Right,
be
so
in the
that's right.
backyard. Or behind the front of the house.
Could be
So
somewhere.
just as kind of a visual example of the stuff, you know, the code enforcement officer is seeing when they go out in the neighborhoods. And, you know, some people will complain on a vehicle that size, but you know, is that getting too
Oh.
strict to do just a regular van?
Isn't that van though, like if it had D plates and over 90 inches, then it would fall under that category?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so the van there in the middle, if it had a D plate, I believe in this case, it's just got a regular like a
Vehicle or a
regular
passenger or
vehicle.
whatever you want to call it, yeah.
It just
D plate.
has the additional ladder racks. It's kind of a standard van. If it was heavier and had the D plate and the ladder rack, then yes, it would count and have to go.
I think probably some of the other issues that people have, it's not just like a plain white van. It's now something that's been fully wrapped with some company graphics and stuff like that on it. I know that I've dealt with that in our own neighborhood, so.
Sure. So we did
Yeah.
not include decals on the list. So if I go back to the list, you know,
Covenants code, yeah.
it's got bucket, lift, towing, dump, ladder storage, taller than 90 inches or designed to carry more than 15 passengers. We talked about should you have decals on the list? That's a pretty broad thing. Again, Domino's
Yeah.
Pizza.
Well, that's the thing. If it's
Main
just
What
a
about-
logo on a door or something like that,
It-
but if
it-
it's fully wrapped,
It got kind of hard to define that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
seeing a lot of cars, because I drive around a lot in the neighborhood for my job, and I'm seeing a lot of shrink wrapped vehicles like the guy by your house. And is that gonna be allowed?
Yeah.
Yes,
Where it's currently written, it is, yeah.
that's
So-
allowed.
We can add that back in. It's just that would be more strict and you'd be catching more vehicles. So writing more people up. So that's kind of the debate of how strict do you want it to be?
What we were trying to do is look at the way we enforce it now and clear up the definitions, but not necessarily make it any stricter than it already is. I don't know, Nathan, do you get a lot of calls about decals?
We mostly get calls about larger vehicles, but they tend to stand out if you've got a bunch of, you know, again, going back to the picture, driving down the street, you notice all of that stuff. And then people say, well, hey, that's a really big vehicle. And so,
I think that's exactly the point, because well, you've driven by my house before the last truck that my husband had, right? It was it went the whole stretch of the driveway. It's a work truck, plain white, but it has the decal, the magnetic thing on the doors. And so that probably doesn't look so obvious or a commercial vehicle to someone. But if you have all of this stuff all over it, then it's more obvious, I suppose, that it's a commercial vehicle. But how do you quantify that and say, well, this much is okay, but this much is not okay? So I think that's a slippery slope. I'm not sure how you define it.
Yeah, I
say
remember,
anything other than a door logo.
Logo could be big. Just saying.
That might be too, I mean, there's, my opinion, like our covenants code, like we have, I get it. But for the rest of the village.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I gotta kind of think that, I think you're in the right direction there, Nathan, just leave
I
it.
think the whole idea of the
Yeah.
ordinance was to eliminate the bigger commercial trucks from becoming a storage yard at their house. I mean,
Mhm.
if a car says State Farm on it or pickup truck has a logo, says whatever, you know what I mean, magnet or something, but I
I
think
hate
it's
to
more
limit
the,
the guy's got a, you know, a little something, I don't know.
I think the whole idea behind it was like that box truck with the ladders, and they got a storage yard there. They got two vans and a trailer, you know, it's.
and that's kind of why we left it out. You know, we talked about, is it being too broad? You know, could you do just part of it? But then you put the code enforcement officer in the position of like, okay, I got to measure how much of your doors got, you know,
Yeah,
the more complicated you make it, the harder it is to enforced
Enforced.
and, be able to drive by and say, yes, that's it.
The funny part about this is it looks like it's really complicated, but because we deal with these on a regular basis, the code to me is more black and white than it ever has been. It's easy to say that, okay, you have more than a D plate, that's easy, you're a commercial vehicle. If you're a cutaway truck or a box truck where the cab is separate from the back, that's easy to know as well. It's when you go into these gray areas, and that's why this picture was a really good one. The one that gets flagged here as a commercial vehicle really has 3 issues minus the decals. It's got the ladder racks, it's probably got the D plate, and it's over 90 inches in height. So right there alone, it's got 3 without the
And
decal.
it's a box truck.
And it's a box truck.
And it's a box truck. There you go.
I mean, I think the parameters are
Category
good.
D too.
Yeah, I think the parameters are good, and I think like you always like to say, it can always be revised or revisited if it's not working.
So it'll likely be 2 ordinances, one for Title 10 for the streets and one for Title 17, because on the zoning side, I'm taking it to Planning Commission tomorrow, because I have to have a public hearing on that side. So that's why in your packet, there was 2 draft ordinances, but the idea would be, the definition would be the same in both. And then in the text, wherever it talked about it, I changed it to make sure it all matched in both.
Any other comments? Good.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. All right. And you have a motion to go to exec session to discuss property
So moved.
acquisition.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. All right. Thank you. Head into exec session.